Ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
Are you ready?
Okay, here we go.
You're listening to the Deal Room Podcast. Join us as we bring you the inside scoop on business sales and acquisitions. Get across trends in the area and hear the industry's best recount their real-life tips, traps, and experiences. Now, here's your host, Joanna Oakey.
Hi, it's Joanna Oakey here, and welcome back to the Deal Room Podcast, a podcast proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. Now, today we have a bit of a different show. We have our Ask Me Anything episode today. So these are questions that I have been provided by you as the listeners or along the way, along the journey in our day-to-day practice that I want to provide answers to you for in a quick podcast session. So today I'll run through a few and we will be integrating this into our podcast from time to time. Now, if you have a question that you'd like me to answer, then please send it to us at podcasts@aspectlegal.com.au, and we'll put that link in the show note. Now, here we go with a very quick session for you. So, Farzin, welcome along to this segment, one of our exciting new segments called Ask Me Anything. So, this is over to you, Farzin. How about you ask me anything? What do you want to know?
Well, so here's the thing for you. We've been around, some challenging transactions.
What in business, sale and acquisition? Challenging transactions? What are you talking about?
If it was a reality TV show to be made, it has to be made for business brokers because there's more drama in that than anything else.
Ah, you're so true. So right. Yeah.
They need to make it. There need to be one. One of the questions I had was, I guess, emotion and strategy, right? Emotion plays a big part when tensions are high. As advisors, ourselves, yourself, we're there to ensure a successful transaction can happen where we are referred to as a Pareto efficient deal, where a good deal for me is not a bad deal for somebody else. How do you ensure when you're in that room where at the 11th hour, the vendor or the purchaser don't tend to agree on a certain clause that could be just the most inescapable, tiniest little condition on a contract that could have the whole deal fall apart? What advice would you give either your purchaser, client, or your vendor?
Do you know what, Farzin? That is such a good question because emotion is, I believe, behind 80% of the issues that happen in these transactions. Absolutely is. Well, it's really interesting because I've thought about this topic a lot because I can see it happening a lot. And in fact, I have a keen interest in human psychology. So psychology was one of my majors next to law when I was studying, and I just loved it. And it's been the most useful education, I think, to support the work that I do in this industry, because understanding people is the key, I believe, to making transactions work. Understanding people and understanding process. There's two things here, and they're interlinked because I think the first thing is education. Buyers and sellers should be educated about the emotion that they're likely to face during a deal. For sellers, and we have a whole heap of different types of sellers. And when I'm talking about emotion being an issue in a large number of transactions, I'm probably talking about that sub $5 million space or sub $10 million space, actually. When you're looking at $10 million plus transactions, it's actually a different type of emotion, quite often more attached to ego in a deal. But the sub $10 million space, we're talking about, micro or medium businesses that are quite often run by the owner-run businesses, or at least it's the owner that you're dealing directly with in the transaction. And if they're leading into retirement, and this has been something that they've built for years and years and years, which is quite often the case, there's this emotion for them in change because, of course, it's a period of massive change, not just for the business, but for themselves personally as they step into a new phase of life. For the buyers as well, there's a lot of emotion potentially going on. Quite often we deal with buyers in this space who are first-time buyers. And first-time buyers can get really caught up in that emotion of the deal. Firstly, they're super excited and they just want to get it done immediately. And then they get scared, they get worried about the risk that's sitting in the deal. So I think the first thing is to make sure that our buyers and sellers understand that this is a likely thing that can happen. That's the very first thing. The second thing, so first thing is education. The second thing is process to try and get deal speed, because I personally believe emotion comes out more as deals slow down. If you can keep deal speed up, if you can use process to push deals forward, you're going to have far more likelihood that emotion either A, won't creep up to the same extent, or B, won't create the roadblocks that they create. And then the third one is communication between the parties. So keeping that open line of communication and keeping the trust between the buyer and seller. And this is where I think it becomes very important that we're making sure that our buyers and sellers choose lawyers who understand what they're doing and don't, put the fear of God into them, in relation to the transaction that they're about to do, because we all know that that can happen in the background and that transactions can run off course because buyers or sellers have lawyers in their ear in the background talking to them about risk, rather than talking to them about how to make sure they get a good deal done. So there you go. That's my 3 points.
You know what? If I was a client that was looking for a solicitor to represent me, I would come to you right now, because there has been so many times where our brokers say to us, that bloody lawyer, they cost us a deal because they dragged this out for so long, and the process was so, it could have been a quick process, but no, they had to put all these extra conditions and clauses in there because they had to get a win for their client and they couldn't reason, and that cost a deal, and unfortunately, and I'm not going to, please don't take this the wrong way, our job, we don't get paid until the deal's done, right? But if I was to say that solicitor gets paid irrespective of whether or not the deal goes ahead or not, right? So I'm sure they get their billing hourly rate in there and they've got their invoice paid. But the accountant, or maybe even the broker, the advisor who was doing the deal, cost them the deal, because one side, the broker had to do certain things that just wasn't right. I need to get you. Our team of Melbourne, in 30 brokers in Melbourne, would love to hear from you, because we need more lawyers like you to help us handle the transactions that we do, because this would be so refreshing for them to hear what you just said and go, oh my God, this is the kind of lawyer we've been looking for, someone that gets a deal, that would expedite things. Where have you been?
Well, we try our hardest, but also, the first thing comes from, I guess, understanding, the industry we're in, the issues that can be created and how to try and get ahead of them. That's the first thing. And the second thing is education. And, I'm very committed to education for free for our audiences. This podcast is for free. We're up to episode, I think, 240 or something now. So there's a lot of education for buyers and sellers out there, absolutely for free. Obviously, I've written this book and a whole heap of stuff there. So I think that's education and providing accessibility of education is another really key thing. But process, and we talked about this in an earlier podcast. We recorded Farzin, the importance of constant innovation, and I'm deeply committed to that, but it requires a lot of effort. And you talked in our episode together about sort of, really I could see how much commitment you had to the concept of innovation, through time and effort and money. And we have that same commitment to innovation, and you can't innovate without that. But I absolutely believe that, to get to a great outcome for our clients, we must continue to innovate and make the process better.
Couldn't agree more. Music to my ears.
Wonderful, fabulous. Well, we've got 2 more minutes if you have a last Ask Me Anything, but you don't have to have a last Ask Me Anything.
No, I'll go one. This is probably more from Emily than I am, because this was her idea.
Okay, give me Emily's Ask Me Anything.
I think Emily's heard my stories many, many times. So she's been in these meetings with me over the years. What I would ask you is, and I'll relate to this. What would you tell a 10-year youngest version of yourself 10 years from now, 10 years ago? What would you tell that person? What advice would you give them?
Wow, I wasn't expecting we'd go there. And I just have to point out, Emily is also in our recording room. For anyone who's not sure, I'm not sure if Emily will make it to our recording videos or not, but just in case people are sitting there wondering, who's Emily that he's talking about? Okay, what would Emily wants to know? What would I tell myself 10 years ago? Oh, holy dooly, that's a really good one. Do you know what? I think the first one is back yourself. That's a really, that's a critical thing, isn't it? Because I think so many of us sit here and have ideas, but implementation of ideas requires commitment and a certain strength of belief that you can pull things through. So I absolutely think, and on that note, I was pulling up. I was working through with our team. We're working on our processes. I told you before, the processes are really important to me. We're working on our process. So I have the whole team together and we're working on the processes. And I unearthed something that I built about probably 6 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And I just went, oh my God, like I built this and then I had this moment of, oh, maybe that's not the right way to do it. Maybe, and a few people had sort of said, oh, I don't think this will work that way. I don't think. And so I stepped back from it, and so the message to myself 5 years ago, not 10 years ago, but 5 years ago would have been back yourself, commit to the process, because I know in looking at it, when I opened it up today, I just went, you know what, I was so on the right track there and we're going to commit to finishing this right now because that was 100% the right track. But I second guess myself and I think great things come out of backing yourself. So do you know what? I'm going with backing yourself and daring to think differently and forcing yourself to think differently, but give yourself the space to be able to do that because nothing can be created without the discipline, the time and the resources, so that's what I'd say.
Amazing. Well done. That's amazing. Emily, did you hear all that?
Emily's in the room nodding for anyone who can't see. Great work, Farzin. Thank you so much for coming into the Ask Me Anythings today.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Well, that's it for our Ask Me Anything episode today. I hope you found that useful. Now, we've got a few more of these style podcasts coming up soon. I find it invaluable to be able to answer these top-of-mind questions, whether they're from our guests, our audience, or our client. Now, if you have a specific topic or question that you'd like us to discuss, then submit your Ask Me Anything questions to podcast@aspectlegal.com.au or check out the show notes to this episode where we will link right through to an email for you to submit your Ask Me Anything questions. And an important reminder that if you would like any legal assistance with matters that you're working on at the moment, then don't forget you can book in for an initial free call directly with our legal eagles at Aspect Legal by heading to our homepage at aspectlegal.com.au. Well, that's it for me today. My name is Joanna Oakey, and you've been listening to another wonderful episode of our podcast, proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. See you next time. I am so very excited to announce that I've hit a non-podcast related milestone and released a book. You might wonder why? Simple. I wanted to help business owners understand the mechanics of deal making and the interaction between 3 critical phases of business: acquisition, growth, and exit. And so I am very happy to announce Buy, Grow, Exit, a guidebook for business owners and their advisors on how to buy, grow, and guess what? Exit in a way that maximizes value and avoids landmines along the way. The book is available now, so just head over to buygrowexit.com.au to get your copy and to access a whole heap of free resources that will really help you on your journey of acquisition, growth, and exit in your business or in working with your clients. Also, check out our show notes where we will link straight through to that page.
Ladies and gentlemen.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.
Thanks for listening to the Deal Room Podcast. To find out more about this episode and other episodes in the series, check out the show notes or head over to our website at thedealroompodcast.com.au.